Okay, so most of you guys probably don't want to hear me talk about this for however long this video is going to be. So here is the TLDR version of the GT4 cars in iRacing. If you want the more stable of the two, get the BMW. If you want something that's a little more on edge and out of the box is a little faster, get the Porsche. Still here? Well then, let's go a little more in depth. This video underwent a number of script changes before I settled on this. Originally, this was going to be a first impressions video of the new BMW M4, but during the week since it's been released, I've spent more time with it than I thought I was going to. And the more I drove it and the more I worked on this script, the more and more its competitor became a part of the story. And because of that, a head-to-head seemed a little more appropriate. So that's what we're going to do. Before we really get into it, a disclaimer the first, I am not the fastest driver in the world. Not even close. If you do watch this video and think I'm probably faster than this guy, yeah, you probably are. I already know. Disclaimer the second, I downloaded OBS like 4 days ago, and I'm working on a PC that wasn't entirely built with gaming in mind, so bear with me if my footage isn't totally crystal clear. First, let's do a little background to understand what these cars are. For those who might not know, GT4 is basically baby GT3. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's what it boils down to. The same organization actually writes the rulebook for both categories. Compared to GT3, GT4 cars make less horsepower and have less aero efficiency, they make less downforce. So GT4 cars are slower across the board, but they're designed like that on purpose. And you get full-on driver aids like traction control and ABS. So when you combine that with the lower horsepower, you get cars that are very, very approachable and very easy to get comfortable in. And that's exactly what we have in both of these cars. Regardless of which car you choose, neither of these cars are particularly difficult to jump into. Good chance you'll get up to speed in them very quickly. Last thing to keep in mind, GT4 is a balance of performance category, which basically means you can have very different cars still be competitive against each other. And that's another thing that we see in these cars. The BMW and the Porsche are constructed very differently from each other. Both cars are rear-wheel drive and both have funky-looking steering wheels, and that's about all they have in common. The only real difference is the engine layout, and as you're about to see, has a direct effect on how these cars handle. So let's get on track and start with the BMW M4 GT4. So this was the very first time I drove the car, period. Originally I was going to do this video with live commentary, but the audio from that didn't turn out so well, so that's why we're doing this in a giant voiceover. We are at the Charlotte Roval, and we are using the baseline setup. I hadn't touched anything on the car at this point. And the first thing you notice is how stable the car is. I mentioned it at the very beginning of this video, but right out of the box, the M4 is a very stable platform under pretty much every condition. Braking, turning, accelerating, All of it. The rear of the BMW is very well planted. You'll even see a few moments of the stability control kicking in where you really can't slide this thing. However, there is one major downside to having the back of the car that well planted, and it's understeer. Lots of it. While the initial turn-in is very good, the car tends to push mid-corner to corner exit. That's where you notice it the most. You'll see as I jump forward in the laps a little bit how much more wheel input I'm putting in. I also jumped in and did a number of the Week 13 races, and at a track like Silverstone or Donington, it felt like I had to back my entry up a little bit, or I should say brake a little earlier, just so that I can get through the corner without running the car wide. But of course, going back to what we said earlier, there is less downforce on the front of the car that is going to affect both your braking zone and your cornering in general. And like anything else, once you get into a rhythm, you kind of learn what the car is capable of doing. You learn to drive around it. And that is really my only complaint with the car. Even as the race run goes on, that stableness doesn't really go away. It's a really nice, consistent car to drive. So with that, let's move on to the Porsche Cayman. Or to give it its full name, the Porsche 718 Cayman GT4 Club Sport Manti Racing. Well, first, I think the Porsche sounds better than the BMW. And as everybody knows, 80% of success in racing is sounding better than your competition. So that's worth at least 4 seconds a lap, not an actual guarantee. The Porsche also gives you, I think, more useful information on the dashboard. It gives you your lap time delta, something the BMW doesn't do. You have your brake bias in the corner, and you also get these extra LED indicators on the side of the main unit. I'm pretty sure those are telling you when the driver aids are kicking in. The purple, I believe, is for traction control, and the yellow is ABS. Someone who actually knows, please either back me up or tell me I'm wrong, one or the other. So again, this is the baseline setup on the Porsche, and it drives very differently to the BMW. In short, it's a lot livelier. Under braking, the back of the car moves around quite a bit more than the BMW. And at the points in a corner where the BMW wants to understeer, like I said before, the Porsche actually rotates really nicely. It's almost like comparing the Mercedes and the Audi GT3 cars, although it's not quite that extreme. The GT4s are way more forgiving than the GT3 cars are. But it's kind of in that same vein. I do think part of the way the Porsche handles, like the Audi, is because it's mid-engine in design. And in my admittedly not very extensive testing, the Porsche on baseline is slightly faster. Now, I'll admit that this is only one track, but I did also drive these cars at Lime Rock Park to get a little bit of extra footage for this video, and the Porsche was faster there as well. But again, keep in mind, this is the baseline stuff. If you spend the time in the setup menu, you can get these cars to drive how you like within reason. Stiffening the rear bars on the BMW, for instance, helps with some of that mid-corner understeer. And for some reason on the baseline, the Porsche has its brake bias set back slightly. If you nudge that forward 1 or 2 clicks, it takes away that nervousness in the braking zone. While we're here, we can look at the two setup menus. They're largely the same, pretty much. The only thing that's a little different is the driver aid adjustment. The Porsche, you'll see, has it all linked under one master control. You can't actually adjust traction control and ABS independently of each other through the menus. BMW has this DSC thing up here, which I believe is driver stability control. The game doesn't entirely explain what that does very well. So, where does that leave us? Well, like I said earlier on in the video, GT4 is a balance of performance category. These cars are designed to race closely with one another. With the very little bit of non-scientific testing that I've done, the Porsche does appear to be a little bit quicker, but the BMW is not miles behind it. So with that, we're almost back to where this video began. If you like a car that's a little edgier, go with the Porsche. If you like something that's a little more stable and predictable, go with the BMW. Well, if you made it to this point in the video, thank you very much. This was largely an experiment to see if I can make a video with this style, so let me know what you guys thought of the video. Let me know what you think of the cars as well. Tell me if my feedback is correct or if I'm totally way off. I'm probably way off. This is the internet. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.